We are going to continue to do updates on vaccinations as often as we need to because the information is changing continually. And if you saw the stories today, you've got a number of healthcare systems and counties that have to cancel or reschedule vaccinations. Let me show you what's happening, and I want to let you know what's going on here in the city of Detroit. So you probably saw this. The federal government announced they were going to double the number of Pfizer vaccines being sent to states this week. When they showed up, they didn't. This is what everybody's dealing with. So the state of Michigan had a shortfall of about 50,000 vaccines from what they'd said, which means everybody is having a tough time this week. In Detroit, we expected to get 9,000 to 10,000 this week. We got 6,000. We can work with 6,000, but it is not what we had hoped to try to keep expanding eligibility. Here's who it will affect. Those who have been scheduled Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week, you're already scheduled, you're going to be able to keep your appointment. The difference between Pfizer and Moderna vaccine, really the only difference between the two, we're using half and half like everybody else is that Pfizer, you get your second shot 3 weeks later. Moderna, you get your second shot 4 weeks later. And so the only change is going to be when you get your second shot, because Hakeem Berry and the team worked it out. So those who were scheduled Wednesday, Thursday, Friday will get Moderna instead of Pfizer. So if you are scheduled this week, show up for your appointment. Your vaccination is going forward as scheduled. Don't need to call anybody. Don't need to do anything. Just show up at your scheduled time. We've got enough supplies on hand to do the 1,000 vaccinations a day that we're now doing at TCF. Your second shot, if you're Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, doesn't affect today, affects Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Your second shot, we're going to push you back 1 week on the schedule. And so if you're getting your first shot tomorrow, January 20th, you would have been getting your second shot on February 10th. That's what your schedule says. Your second shot date will be a week later. It'll be Wednesday, February 17th. The second shot date is all this changing, not tomorrow. Same thing, Thursday, you'll get your second shot on February 18th. Friday, you'll get your second shot on February 19th. You don't need to call. You don't need to change anybody. We already know this. But when you come in this week, we will give you a new slip that has your appointment for your second shot to make sure you have the right date. And if you happen to be somebody who said, hey, February 18th, I had an event, I can't do it, we can move that second shot date one day or the other. It doesn't have to be precisely the 21st or 28th day. You can move it a day or two. And so when you go in to get your shot, if they give you a second shot date and you said, hey, I got a conflict, you can fix it right then. So I'm going to say this again. Please don't call the call center. The call center is swamped with new appointments. We've got this under control. All you have to do is show up at your regularly scheduled time, and we will reschedule you on the spot. This is the way that it's going to go for a while, is we're going to have to be flexible on how these things work, but we are going to lead the country in efficiencies on vaccinations, and we still are. So far, we've scheduled about 12,000 appointments at TCF. And to give you a sense, about 8,000 of those folks are either people over the age of 70 or the good neighbors over 65 who are driving them. About 3,300 are teachers and school and child care employees. And I would say to the teachers, now is the time, if you're going back to class March 1st, if you're already in class, call now. I've watched Dr. Vitti, who's trying to navigate this, and it has been very, very difficult. The pharmacies weren't able to do it. He was supposed to have supplies this week that fell through because of Pfizer. But the simplest way for DPSCD or charter employees to get vaccinated is just call and come into the TCF Center. And so 3,300 already have, but it's going to be the simplest and easiest way for at least another week or so. But the clock is running if you're going back to school March 1st. The earlier you get that first shot and the earlier you get that second shot, the more protection you will have. So don't wait till late February. If you're going back into a classroom March 1st to get your shots, you really need to start getting the shots in the next week or two. We've had about 700 City of Detroit employees call, 400 postal workers. I don't know that I've had as many positive notes from anybody. The postal workers thought they had been forgotten in this, but I'm really pleased with the fact that 400 postal workers have already taken the time, and we've got the room for you. This is in addition, that's just the 12,000 at the TCF Center. We've got a few thousand more that are the homeless shelters, the senior centers, police, fires, DDOT, where Denise Fair has taken her team to those sites. So that's where we stand today, 12,000 appointments at TCF, and then all of the others being done in the other places. And we're running at a rate where we're using these vaccines probably within 72 hours of receiving them. It is about as efficient as operation as you're going to see. So, schedule your vaccine. Dial the number. You know the 5 categories. You're 70 or older. You're a good neighbor 65 or older who drives 70-year-olds. I've been very impressed with how many people have paired up as good neighbors. K-12 school teachers, child care workers, city employees who have to come to the job site, who can't work from home, and the U.S. Post Office employees who live or work in Detroit. I want to go to age 65, but I can't do it until we know that we're getting 10,000 vaccinations a week. Otherwise, if we were to go to age 65, and there's 100,000 people in the city who live over 65, if we did it today, all that's going to happen is it'll overrun the phone system and you won't be able to get appointments because we don't know yet that we're going to get 10,000 vaccines a week. The day that the Biden administration tells us we can count on 10,000 a week, we are going to bring the age down to 65. That could even be before the end of the week. I don't know. But I will not put our seniors in a position where I know I stand up here and promise them you can get a vaccine and then you call and we don't have appointments. We are going to do this as fast as we can, but we're also not going to raise expectations that we can't meet. We do have one category that we are going to expand today. It's a small one, but after all the post office employees called, I heard from some of our other friends in the federal government who said, what about us? And so our friends at the FBI, the ATF, and the like, who are going to work in the city of Detroit, who are being exposed, as well as our state officials. Our law enforcement officials can also now be added. It's a small number, but I think it's an important message. So, if you are a federal or state law enforcement official who lives or works in Detroit and you have to go to your job site, this doesn't apply to people who are working from home. So if you're in the FBI, ATF, DEA, U.S. Marshal, U.S. Attorney's Office, State Police, we've got folks from the Michigan Attorney General's Office working out of Cadillac Place in Detroit. If you work for any of these agencies and you're coming in and out of Detroit working, you can call, make your appointment, and then all you have to do is show your law enforcement badge when you show up on the day of your vaccine. It's probably only a few hundred people, but I thought folks had a pretty legitimate point. The post office workers, I think, was a great thing that we did, but we also have other partners on the federal and state side who are protecting us. And of course, the Detroit police are being vaccinated right now. We are starting to get better at outreach, and so we now have on site for the deaf sign language interpreters, and we will be able to accommodate you if you have a hearing disability. Also, if you speak Spanish, Arabic, or Bengali, that's your native tongue, we have a number now where you can book your appointment and get your details in your native language. I know a lot of this is confusing. You want to have that conversation directly, and so you can see the number there, 855-393-4432. So we now have language support for our residents who speak Spanish, Arabic, or Bengali. And within a week or two, we're going to have those who don't have access to vehicles or are disabled, we're going to have a means in place to get you rides to the TCF Center, and we're in the process of arranging those contracts now. We are going to make sure every Detroiter who's eligible has access to these vaccines. Kevin Johnson, the head of DEGC, was here last week to get you a heads up if you own a small business in Detroit. And this is a reminder. The site is open today. 9 a.m., $4 million available to Detroit companies from the Michigan Strategic Fund. It opens today, it closes Friday. Okay, so this is a grant program for the diligent. You got to be on top of this right now. You can go to degc.org and we will help you through that process. And as a reminder, what's a small business? Between 1 and 100 employees, you lost business because of the COVID restrictions, the mask or gathering orders. If your business is completely shut down, you can get $20,000. If your business is limited, say a restaurant where you can do carry out but you can't do sit down, that's limited, you can get $15,000. And you can use these grants for payroll, rent, mortgage, utilities, your normal business expenses. We are going to beat this virus in the next 3 or 4 months. When we do, we need to make sure your business is still there and operating, because we have got to bring this economy in the city back as fast as possible. So please, go to the website, degc.org. Any Detroit business between 1 and 100 employees whose business has been impacted by the COVID restrictions, get in, get the forms in. The governor and the state have done a great job of making this available to us. And this basically is going to go to whichever companies are well enough organized that they can get an application in 3 days. And hopefully the city of Detroit will, again, have the kind of responsiveness that we want. So I wanted to do these briefings today to let you know what we've got available, where we stand, and we're continuing to see just good numbers. We're continuing to see low infection rates. We're continuing to see good compliance. And I'm just really pleased that Denise Fair and the health department are out of these homeless shelters, are out of these senior citizen centers every day for people who otherwise might be forgotten. And with that, I'll turn it over to Director Fair to talk about how her outreach effort is going.
Thank you, Mayor. So it's going pretty well. Last week we began to vaccinate our most vulnerable, which is our seniors as well as those who are experiencing homelessness. So last week we vaccinated 400 staff and residents at 3 homeless shelters and 4 senior apartment buildings in just the first 3 days. So the health department is working really closely with the Wayne State Medical School students. And again, our goal is to vaccinate 60 senior apartment shelters and 60 senior apartments and 29 shelters by the end of February. We are right on track. This week for our senior apartments, we're going to University Village, Forest Park Place, and Riverbend Down. And next week we will go to, for the homeless shelters, this week we'll go to Salvation Army on Fort Street, Alternatives for Girls, as well as Cass Community Shelters, and there are several of them. So that is our plan for this week. We will add on more as our schedule expands. It really has been a great experience working with the facility managers. They have really welcomed us. The residents are really glad that we're bringing the vaccine to them, and that is what our role is at the health department. We are protecting our most vulnerable, those who live and work in congregate settings. And we're bringing the vaccine directly to them. That's outreach. That's essentially public health. And so I do want to thank our incredible vaccination team at the health department, as well as those who are volunteering with Wayne State, as well as our other community partners. I want everyone to know what a great team we have who are working to bring this life-saving vaccine to the people of Detroit. So again, we'll continue our efforts this week, and I imagine this will be a weekly report. We will share with you where we are going every single week. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Yeah, this is going to be very short, and just want to make sure folks are up to speed after the holiday weekend. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. Vicki with WWJ. What do you anticipate with the new Biden administration in terms of getting the vaccine out quicker? Is that what you're anticipating?
And I've been talking to Jeff Zients, President-elect Biden's director, and the first thing would be truthful information would be helpful. The announcement that Pfizer vaccines were going to be doubled, and then a week later the Fed say, oh, sorry, they're not, when everybody in the country started planning for this, is the worst of all worlds. You got to call people back after they've been scheduled, and we've been fortunate that we've avoided that in the city of Detroit, but a lot of places around the country have had to do that. What I've said to Jeff is, we just need to know the truth. We really would like to get 10,000 a week right now and go up to 15, 20, 25,000 a week, but if you can't do it, tell us. And I think we'll get honesty. They are going to use the Defense Production Act to try to maximize it. We're hearing stories that Pfizer has got vaccines in their warehouse the federal government hasn't even purchased yet. And I was helping the governor over the weekend try to figure out if we could buy them. But there are restrictions that won't allow them to go directly to the states, so we need to maximize that. And then I know where they're going. They're going to try to essentially replicate the vaccine centers that Detroit and a number of other cities are doing, possibly with National Guard in different parts of the state. And so they're going to take the best model and replicate it. And right now, from our standpoint, we're in good shape in the city. We're ready to go, just get us the vaccines. And I'm hopeful that at least it'll be predictable. Predictability right now would be a great thing. I can't say enough about the folks over at TCF, what they've been doing. And at the end of the day, if they've got a handful of vaccines that are going to go bad, they're getting on the phone and calling seniors they know and getting them down. And it's a very complicated process right now. And hopefully with a couple more weeks of experience, it'll get easier.
What's the shelf life of the vaccine?
So once, if Hakeem were here, he'd tell you all the details, but when you take the Pfizers out of the deep freeze, you can keep them in a refrigerator for 5 days. But once you start to pull them out of vials, you lose them pretty quickly. And everybody in the country is dealing with this. You're hearing the stories about at all the centers. You need to just find somebody at the leftover ones at the end of the day, and we're trying to time it as close as we can. But if you get 20 or 30 people don't show up, and you've drawn the syringes at the end of the day, you really need to use them. And so far, we've been effective at getting everyone used. But if you saw what they were going through over there, it's an extraordinary effort what they're doing.
Dr. Vitti had mentioned that he had been in talks with the city to see about allowing the district to administer the vaccine to its teachers and staff. Is that something doable?
We fully support that. The problem is they got to get the vaccines. So DPS has nurses on staff. And so as part of our request for 9,500 this week, we had, 900 for DPS requested?
About 500.
Yeah, so, and then the numbers just didn't come through. So Dr. Vitti's doing everything he can, but we support him. As soon as these numbers come up, we are lobbying to get them vaccines directly. In the meantime, I would say this week, all teachers and school employees probably ought to come here. I'm hopeful by the end of next week, Dr. Vitti has a dedicated supply. He's doing everything he can.
My last question to you, Mr. Mayor, the inauguration tomorrow, are you going? And what does the new Biden administration mean for the city of Detroit?
I will be going virtually, and I'll have a huge smile, and hopefully normalcy will return to this country.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning.
I'm Harold Meeks with Tell Us Detroit. It seems that you have a good handle on vaccine for this week, but for those people who have signed up and are scheduled for next week, how does that look?
I think we're going to be okay. I will know more on Thursday or Friday, but we're in constant conversations. The governor's doing everything she can, but over the weekend I talked to the head of the FDA, Dr. Hahn, who was good enough to call me back on Saturday night to talk me through these things. He's going to be out of office on Tuesday. But it gives you the sense of what we're doing, and he couldn't give me any guidance on what was going to happen on Wednesday. But right now, I expect that the appointments that we made for next week, we will keep next week. I don't have any reason to think that we won't, but if we have more information, we'll let the public know the minute that we get it. We usually find out on Friday morning how many vaccines are available for the next week. And so if we learn earlier, we'll tell people earlier.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, we've got just a couple questions from reporters that are watching remotely. One question is, do we have a breakdown of the doses, how many doses we've received of both Moderna and Pfizer to this point?
We do. In fact, John, you probably got it on your,
I think it was 7,100 total, but the breakdown I'd have to pull
So
up.
it's, 5,100 Pfizer, and then the remaining are Moderna at this point.
Okay, and then,
Anyway, we can get you the exact numbers. The answer is yes, we do. In fact, we're going to have a dashboard up in a day or two that's going to show you how many came in of each type and who received them.
okay, and one other follow-up question was whether any of the doses needed to be held back initially to get the pipeline together for the TCF center, or if they were as rapidly deployed.
Yeah, we try to keep 1 or 2 days in reserve, just so that if something crashes, we don't have a whole bunch of people showing up. But no, I think 85% of what we received are in people's arms right now, and that's a ratio we are going to stay at. And in the next day or two, there will be a dashboard up that you can see exactly how many Pfizer and Modernas we've received, how many have been delivered to individuals, and what those groups are. But we're running about it, at any given time, 85% of what comes in, we have injected.
Okay, and just the last question, that's kind of a repeat from before, but just for understanding, all the costs incurred for TCF Center and the call center, et cetera, will expect to be reimbursed?
Right now, the city is fronting them, but certainly I expect the federal government to reimburse us at some point. I just wasn't going to wait. So we're going to take care of people first, and we'll figure out the reimbursement later.
All right, okay, that's the last question.
All right, thank you very much.